I've been a digital maximalist my whole life, collecting every smartphone. But recently, I discovered a concept that changed my perspective: digital minimalism. Digital minimalism, as defined by Newport, is a philosophy of technology use in which you focus your online time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value. It's been a few weeks since I buy this new tiny phone. This small tiny Android phone. So it's not a dumb phone, you still got the Android stock experience. I decided to buy this tiny phone mainly because I realized I was using too much my old phone, but I decided to do not install any social media app like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. I don't have any of that installed of this thing. I only have Duolingo, Audible, and few other apps. I delayed my graduation by 1 year because I started going to the 42-week-old school that it's a programming school in Germany. After my Erasmus, when I got back to Italy, I didn't take any exam. I wasn't sure about finish my degree. Then, starting in 2023, I decided I wanted to finish my degree. And for this reason, I started enrolling course. And I took 3 exams in the February. And then to get back on track this summer, I had to take almost 1 exam per week starting from June. I took these 4-5 exams during the summer. I came to the realization when I was trying to study that no matter how hard I was trying to focus on the subject I was studying, it was almost impossible for me to focus like I want to. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for each exam since they were like 1 week apart from each other. So during those study session, I realized I couldn't focus enough to get in the mode where I would feel like I study enough. But luckily I was able to pass in all these exams. And one of the core ideas that made me buy this phone is digital minimalism. And the author of the book Digital Minimalism was Newport. I was reading others of his book like So Good They Can Ignore You and Deep Work. Digital minimalism is a philosophy about how much intentional we are in the use of our phone. And I come to the realization, to the conclusion that what Newport is saying is like, it's not a matter of like, oh yeah, I have self-discipline, I can have like the nicest phone, all the app installed, then when I say it's enough, it's gonna be enough. Because our smartphones nowadays are like built to be attractive to us. It's like those devices are so well engineered. Like you can see this is like the iPhone 5. By design, those things are made to be nice in your hand, like to feel good in your hand. So you wanna use them as much as you can. I heard it from Carl Newport in a recent podcast I listened to, was that Steve Jobs himself was a minimalist.
But Jobs was a minimalist, right? So he was all about, let's take things that are really valuable to people and then make that experience even better. And so music was something people really cared about. I mean, people were listening to iPods all the time. Jobs really, really was into music and thought music was very important. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to make the music playing experience better, which is what he actually spends a lot of that keynote talking about, is showing these new features. Look, you can swipe through. This was the first touchscreen iPod. You can swipe through the album covers. Look how nice this is. And people cared about making phone calls. And he thought it was egregious how clumsy the existing phone interfaces were on cell phones. He said, I can make making a phone call into this more elegant experience. I can combine these into one device. So it was a very minimalist idea. Let me take 2 things that people really like to do and then make the experience aesthetically even more beautiful. There's no app store. He didn't trust the idea of third-party people developing apps for him. He thought they would be ugly.
The Apple experience was the whole thing.
He told this lead developer, the quote that he gave me was, if someone else puts their app on here, it's going to crash the phone just when that person needs to call 911.
And then the second thing, it's like the software that is inside of these devices.
The question is this thing going to really help one of these things I really value? Is it going to give one of these things a really big boost? If so, I'll let it back in my life. Probably with some rules about how I use it, but I'll let it back in. If not, I'll miss out. And I don't care if it has some small value or some small convenience. And so it's about building the foundation of values that you need to actually have a minimalist approach to your tech. So it's I want tools to be used to really boost a small number of things I really care about and really value. And that's the whole ball game for me. I don't care that this has some small benefit or some minor convenience. I want to use tech to get big wins. And that's sort of a classic minimalist approach.
Using those social media has some benefit, but the benefits are so little compared to the cons. I have this phone with me. It's not gonna be like a harsh detox. Newport doesn't like the term detox. I still have my phone, the one that's recording this video, the other one I showed you earlier, are still gonna be usable in my house, but just they're not gonna be with me all the time. So if I needed, for example, this device to record a video, like to watch a video on social media, I'm just gonna turn it on, do what I need to do on the social media platform, and then turn it back off. You realize that with a tiny phone like this, I don't text as much as I used to do. I don't use it anyway as much as I used to. You realize, like, when you're waiting for the subway or like when you are in the car, how much people actually spend time on their phone. So one of the benefits I found that I have more time for myself, I have more time for reading, and I feel like I am more accountable for the action I'm taking. Another professor was cited John Hay, and he's made few research about the impact of social media of our generation.
Is that I'm a social psychologist who studies morality, moral psychology, and I was then specializing in political psychology, and I'm looking at polarization, and I'm studying how social media is really doing a number on our democracy. It's really empowering extremes, and everything's going crazy, and all the optimism. My generation, we had so much optimism in the 1990s, and the early, especially, we thought, democracy is flourishing and the Berlin Wall has fallen and the internet is going to be amazing and it's going to help democracies everywhere. So that was my main line of work. And because I'd done a side project with my friend Greg Lukianoff on the coddling of the American mind, where Greg and I had both noticed that something was really off about the mental health of students coming into college in 2014. Those who arrived in 2012 were millennials, and they were just like students had been for 10 years previously. But all of a sudden, students arriving in 2014, 2015 were more anxious, more easily triggered was the word. We hadn't heard that word before. And so I had this whole project on the coddling the American mind where we focused especially on overprotection. And I got a contract to write a book called Life After Babel, Adapting to a World We May Never Again Share. And I thought I'd just write the first chapter on what happened to teens, because I had all this data by then, working with Jean Twenge, all this data on how teen mental health was collapsing. And I wrote that chapter, which became chapter 1 of the current book. And my plan was to just go on from that and say, okay, look what happened to teens. Now let's look at what happens when you move your democratic debate and all the adults are talking. But once I wrote that chapter, I saw the graphs. And once I discovered that it wasn't just us, it was the exact same thing in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Northern Europe. It was throughout much of the developed world. Teen mental health began to collapse around 2012, plus or minus a year or two.
It's just a matter of becoming intentional, and I wanted to improve my focus, to improve my studying habits. During the exam session, I realized I didn't have enough time to study history by reading a book, so I started watching YouTube videos, and this professor is making videos for his students and he's sharing them on YouTube, and he makes videos mainly about history and philosophy, and I was studying to give my history exam, so I was watching his video at super speed. But then after I give the exam, I pass it, I realized like those stuff are a lot of interesting to me, so I started watching his video just for fun, to learn more. I still use YouTube to watch his videos, for sure. But books are becoming the replacement for entertainment. I'm gonna help myself using Audible as a support. So while I'm reading, I'm also listening to the books. I bought many books, try to replace all the free time now I'm gonna have, since I don't use the social media app as frequent as I used to. So right now those are the books I bought for now. I am currently reading this one by Fyodor Dostoevsky, but I plan to read more books than those ones. There's two about artificial intelligence. This one it's by including Henry Kissinger